All right. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So this session was supposed to be last week, and of course, with the catastrophe of the caving tent, we postponed it to this week. And I'm honored to have Dr. Khokar sitting here beside me. I consider him a good friend, and I'm very fortunate to have him as one. MashaAllah, Dr. Khokar is one of the scientists at Western, a PhD in neurosciences, and his focus in many aspects of that discipline, and one of them is addictions and dealing with behavioral aspects of that. And inshallah today the two of us will kind of talk about aspects of that within Ramadan, and kind of where and how to deal with it, and we will maybe inshallah at the end leave some space for questions if there are questions, inshallah. And if there are questions after Isha, like we can extend it, inshallah. If there are questions, we can extend it for after Isha, inshallah ta'ala. I'm going to piggyback off one of my older sessions here, just to make it, just so I have something to kind of put up there for you. But with no further ado, I'll kind of hand it over to Dr. Khokar, and he'll talk a little bit about what he's hoping to share with you, and we'll kind of go back and forth. And if you have a question at any point during this session, you don't have to wait until the end. You just put your hand up, and we're happy to kind of hear you out. I think the brothers here, there's a microphone. Just have it ready for whoever wants, inshallah.
بسم الله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله والصحابة والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى قيام الساعة. جزاك الله خير. It's great to be here. Ramadan is the guest that we wait for every year. And Ramadan has a lot riding for all of us. And that's why we pay attention to it, and that's why we try to prepare for it, and that's why we're all here today. And so one thing that I just wanted to share today, and to start off with, and then we'll talk about different aspects of it, inshallah. Okay. So we'll talk about different aspects of it later, but the biggest thing that, and I think, Dr. Adnan, Sheikh Adnan can also comment on it, the thing that's the hardest for us as humans is behavioral change. Changing how we act, changing how we are is very difficult. You ask somebody who treats people with addictions, they'll tell you that it's very hard to get them to quit. You ask somebody who's a cancer doctor, it takes something big. Right? Like, if you get lung cancer, maybe you'll stop. You quit smoking. You get maybe, right? You're a doctor who sees patients with obesity. Getting them to change their behavior is very hard. And so all people who deal with people can tell you that changing behavior is hard. And we all know that for ourselves. We'll try to add something to our lives, and maybe it'll go for a week or 2 or 3, and then it'll diminish away. We'll try to take something away from our lives. Like, I'm not drinking pop anymore. And then somehow we'll get back on that wagon again, or fall off that wagon, whichever way you want to consider it. Right? So that is how we are. But Ramadan gives us a really neat opportunity. And I'm going to use the example of what we see outside right now in the snow. Okay? And I think this example will, because all of us have been trying to shovel out of it, and the tent fiasco makes it that much more real. But in the last 2 weeks, every time there was snow falling every night, if you tried to shovel out of the snow, or if you tried to shovel the night before, the next morning the snow was back there. But even if you did, you were maybe able to do like a surface level shoveling. But those tracks that were there that your car had driven on every day, those you were not able to get rid of, right? And then it just got built on top of that. And subhanAllah, when we think of Ramadan, and we talk about it every time, we say, "Man sama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi," or we say, "Man qama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi." We take that as whoever fasts the month of Ramadan or stands in the night prayer, their past sins are forgiven. And then we take that with the other hadith that from Friday to Friday, from Ramadan to Ramadan, your sins are forgiven. But if you think about what those sins are, that's the powdering snow that falls off, and that's what you've been able to just push off every year, right? That's the powder. What remains are those tracks. And that's what Ramadan gives us, a really unique opportunity. It's like if you had all the time in the world, no other distractions, and you said, today I'm going to clean my driveway and remove those iced on, caked on tracks. That's what Ramadan gives us, a really unique opportunity to do. And just like we were talking about, when somebody finds out that they have gotten cancer, that is a catalyst for change. That changes people's behavior, that knocks them out of the norm, and now is one way for them to change their behavior. Ramadan is the exact same. And so even when we think about the hadith, and Sheikh Adnan has talked about it multiple times, but about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam climbing up the minbar, right? And saying Ameen. And so think about even that. Like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, says that may he be destroyed who sees Ramadan and is not able to have their sins forgiven through it. So the very basic, like the lowest possible level on this thing is having your sins forgiven. And inshallah, just even if it's not our own doing, maybe the imam in the Taraweeh, maybe that old person that nobody's paying attention to in the corner, maybe that sister that's going through a really hard time, she raises her hand in dua and she asks for forgiveness for herself and for everybody around her, will be forgiven. But it needs to go beyond that. And that's what we need to use Ramadan for. And so even when we look at the example of what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, as-siyamu junnah, that the fast is a protection, right? And then he goes on to saying that if somebody comes to you and wants to pick a battle with you, fight with you, quarrel with you, you say to him, inni sa'imun, I am fasting. But if you really think about somebody coming to pick a fight with you or a quarrel with you or argue with you, if you tell them I am fasting, you're not going to de-escalate them. If anything, like, who do you think you are, all high and mighty, telling me you're fasting? Right? Like, that's probably going to escalate them further if they really wanted to come and argue and pick a fight with you. Right? Like, the words even used by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were like insult you, right? Like fight with you, argue with you, quarrel with you. That's what he's using. So this person is not backing down just because you tell them inni sa'imun. That's a reminder for yourself. That's a reminder for yourself. That's that positive use of language to convince yourself to change. I am fasting. I am fasting. I will not act out of that. And so that, I think, is a really important reminder. And so and I'll end with this and I'll let Sheikh Adnan chime in, but even when I read the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it's about both the siyam and the qiyam. He says, "Rubba sa'im," that there is a sa'im, laysa lahu, like there is nothing that he gets from his fast except for what? Hunger and thirst. Or the qa'im, the person who stands up in the night prayer, maybe he gets nothing from his qiyam except for sleeplessness. And so usually people think of that in the context of, oh, if you're not giving up vain speech, and Sheikh Janabi talked about that, and but you think about it in that context, right? Like, oh, you're only getting that and you're not getting the reward maybe, or you're not. But another thing, if you think about it just from a slightly different angle, maybe there are fasters, maybe there are people who are praying the night prayer who just get the very bare minimum out of Ramadan and are not able to use this catalyst for actual behavioral change, for something. So one, and I'll leave you with this. Before the next week arrives, before the first night of Ramadan arrives, before you make that intention the night before that you will fast the month of Ramadan, come up with one thing. Doesn't have to be a list of 10, doesn't have to be a list of 30. One thing. This is the change I am going to make during this month. And inshallah, if all of us have if Allah gives us life and gives us 20, 30 Ramadans to see from here until the end of our life, then we can truly say that our last day was our best, because our best deeds were on our last day, and that last day was the day that we met Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khair. I'm going to actually ask you to help us with this aspect of ridding ourselves from bad habits. So the way I was taught this, at least this is what the scholars who I grew up with would focus on, and it's up there on the screen, is what I wanted to share with you. And I share this with most of my students every year, that Ramadan, large adjustments are very helpful for getting rid of bad habits. They're not as helpful with picking up good habits. Now that's the experience that they have, and I'm going to, inshallah, ask you to give us some tips on how to do some of these things. Picking up good habits usually require like small increments. You do small baby steps. You just, for example, for adhkar, as the way we were taught, is you start with maybe a couple of hundred a day, and then you do that for a while until you get used to it, and then you add another 100, and then you add another 100, and you do that every couple of weeks, or sometimes every couple of months even. So you can go for a full year just maybe reading half a page of the Quran. That's it, just sticking to that, and then when you feel comfortable with it, you add maybe another half a year later, and you do that long enough, and then after a couple of years, you end up with a reasonable amount of good habits that you didn't have before. But getting rid of bad habits, which is I think what Dr. Gibran meant by the tracks, I guess, is what you were. So I like the analogy of just what's kind of stuck in the driveway that we don't really take the time to get rid of. So these bad habits, I find large adjustments, or at least that's the way I was taught, that large adjustments are helpful. Ramadan's a large adjustment. Ramadan's a huge adjustment. Ramadan comes in and just kicks in the door and just wrecks your schedule, like completely, just sits right in the middle of the room and just right on top of everything, and just it doesn't ruin things, but for those who don't understand what's happening, that's how they feel, because it takes away when you're not able to eat all day long, and you have to stay up later every night, or for longer than you usually would, probably doing something that takes a certain degree of energy, and that being a daily commitment, it's a large adjustment to your lifestyle. Like, you're not used to, you have to wake up before Fajr now, and you have to have some food, and then obviously if you want to get the Ajr, you have to pray Fajr Jama'ah either in the masjid or at home, and by then you're already awake. Once you eat and drink and pray, you're kind of awake. It's not easy. I don't know, I can't go back to sleep after that. Maybe if you're really young, you can just fall back to sleep, but if you're a bit older, it's hard to go back to sleep. So now you're waking up an hour or 2 hours even earlier than you usually wake up, and you still have a job to go to, and you're not able to have lunch or have your coffee or whatever other stimulants you're using. So Ramadan does come in and do that for sure. It's a large adjustment. I really think it's worthwhile thinking about what bad habits you want to rid yourself of throughout Ramadan, and scheduling helps with that, because if you look at your schedule, you can't fit in all the extra stuff that Ramadan is bringing in with your old schedule. And your old schedule has bad stuff, has bad habits in it, right? But you can't really fit it all. Again, unless the day is going to become 29 hours, so you have an extra 5 hours, you can't really fit it all in. So you have to make a choice of what you're going to give up on. Like, you have to make a choice of what you're going to leave alone and not do anymore within your day. And I love the idea of choosing one thing that you're going to make sure you don't do throughout the 30 days. If you spend 30 days of Ramadan not doing it, and then you commit an extra 10 days after Eid, then inshallah you're good. Like, you'll be able to commit to that. So I was going to ask Dr. Gibran if you're willing to offer us maybe some tips of how to rid ourselves from these bad habits using this large adjustment that is Ramadan.
Yeah, so, and we always go back to, so science is science, and science changes in science, but for us, when it comes to like our epistemological truths, right, like there is nothing that is more true than the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sayings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right? I can tell you what I can figure out from my day job, and we can get there too, but you can see what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did even when recommending fasting to people, right? So he says, Ya ma'ashar al-shabab. He's talking to, mashallah, all of you, the youth here, right? He says, when istata'a, whoever from you can get married, can afford to get married, then he should. But if he cannot, if he's not able to do it, he can't afford to do it, his circumstances don't allow for it, then he should fast. Right? And the wisdom in that is multiple folds. First of all, as Sheikh Adnan was saying, not having food or drink diminishes both your energy levels, but also diminishes your drive, your helps with this nafs of ours, this wild horse that we're trying to tame at all times, fasting puts us in a different state, where now we feel like, okay, if the food and drink, which are those primary driving forces, not just for us humans, but for the animals as well, right? In the winter, you'll see a squirrel trying to find some food. You'll see the raccoon digging through the garbage. Those are those primary drivers of behavior that exist from the animals to the humans, right? And so if you are able to exert control on that piece, on the food and drink piece, then you can then extend that control onto other things as well. And that's when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what's the other desire that's there? It's the desire for intimacy and the desire, and the animals have that drive too. And if you can then extend it, you would extend it there. Right? So Ramadan and fasting is already putting you in that state. And then when you look at science, there's also science behind it as well. Fasting, for example, reduces baseline dopamine levels. And so in this world that we live in, where we're just in this constant immersion in dopamine, where every click, every bing from our sound, from our phone, every like, every heart, every retweet, every whatever, we're just washed with dopamine, your baseline dopamine levels are reduced when you're fasting. And so that is already going to put you in a, I don't agree with the dopamine detox and all of that, there's fads out there, but at the very least it's lowering that. But in addition to that, you can use this as a launch pad, right? And one example I'll use is smoking, as an example. People will often bring up, there's this fatwa here and there's this fatwa here about it being makruh. But the ijma' of the scholars, the consensus of the scholars is this is haram. This is haram because you're taking it yourself with your hands into destruction. Single largest preventable cause of death worldwide. And if you actually went through the 5 maqasid, the sharia, every one of them, it actually goes against. From impact on wealth, to impact on progeny, to impact on intellect, to impact on life, and then the biggest one, it's against your religion, it's haram. And so, but you'll see often in Ramadan that there's a date in one hand and a cigarette in the other. Right? Like that's a very common scenario. And like you pop the date in and then you're smoking the first cigarette. And subhanAllah, even the dua that we make when we break our fast, that what has gone, the dhama is gone. And the uruq have been wetted again. The dryness and the thirst, the lack of food and the lack of drink, all of that parchment that we were feeling, that is gone. And thabat al-ajru inshallah, and then the reward is written. And so that breaking of the fast is actually something very rewarding for all of us. You see your mood lifting up immediately when you take that first drink of water, when you take that date. Everything changes. But for us, that is associated with the date. But for somebody who's a smoker, guess what that gets associated with? It's that first drag. They're like, I feel good. All days worth of withdrawal is gone. That was the best thing ever. And so if anything, that habit is actually being reinforced during the month of Ramadan. Because all of the goodness that we feel out of taking that first drink, taking that first date, they end up associating with that first drag of the cigarette. So that's why the scholars, Dr. Hatim al-Hajj, Ibn Uthaymeen, they have gone and talked about, don't just let it be something from dawn to dusk, I'm not going to smoke. Instead, use this as an opportunity to quit smoking altogether. And they say, go seek help from a doctor before Ramadan starts. Ask them for a nicotine patch, which is permissible during the month of Ramadan. You can actually put on a patch and be taking nicotine throughout the month. In fact, you know how you feel the caffeine withdrawal and that makes you irritable? Nicotine withdrawal is that much worse. You are actually ruining your fast by being in a state of withdrawal. But if you were to put on a patch, you would actually be reducing that state of withdrawal, and you would, by the end of Ramadan, that first cigarette would not feel as good because the patch is already there, your body's got nicotine. And hopefully by the end of Ramadan, you would be able to reduce the number of cigarettes that you smoke in that period between Maghrib and Fajr the next day, and hopefully you'll be able to quit altogether. So use this as a springboard. Use this, and my younger brothers, it's not just for smoking. It applies to vaping as well. And We all know that the rates of vaping are just as high in the Muslim youth as they are outside. And so those that you have a friend that vapes, they're going to be in acute nicotine withdrawal on that first fast, on that second fast, on that third fast, and it's going to be there every day. And so tell them about it. Tell them not to ruin their fast by being in a state of withdrawal and using this as an opportunity to put that away. This is an example. It's one example, but you can apply this to whatever else. If you struggle with things that you're looking at on your phone, remove the apps, put on controls, find an accountability buddy for the month of Ramadan, and use it as a springboard to then not go back to it again after Ramadan.
And I think I think something that we can do that is practical, and this is what I ask a lot of the Tazkiyah students that I work with, is to look at your schedule before Ramadan. Look at what your schedule is. Yeah, Ramadan's 30 days. It's not infinite number of days. It seems like it's a long time, but it really isn't. And you can probably account for those 30 days, and you probably know what when you're off and when you're working and when you're busy, when you have a talk here or on call here, or you have to be in class there. So look at your schedule. And make sure that you plan out when you're going to get your rest. I'm going to talk about sleep a little bit here because it's actually very important. What happens, we have this biphasic graph that is associated with Ramadan. I'm very close to just drawing and putting it in front of people, but I feel like it's almost a jinx, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it out of respect. But really, the way I've been in masajid in Ramadan since I was a very young kid, it goes up for the first 4 or 5 days, and then it's like I don't know if you've ever seen people fall off a waterfall into it's just a nose dive, and then it stays like that until the 20th night, and then people start picking up on the 20th night because they think it's the first of them, but it's not. And alhamdulillah that they do, because they come a night early for stuff, and then it starts going up, and then it kind of comes back a bit towards the 27th and 29th, 8th and 29th. Now the reason this happens, in my opinion, is not that people lose motivation. That's my opinion, and I could be wrong here. It's one of the main reasons, in my opinion, is that they didn't schedule out their days. Like they didn't take care of their pace. So they went in with all that motivation to attend Fajr and attend Isha and attend Taraweeh and read Quran and listen to a dars and do the dhikr and do the dua, like they really came in, but they didn't schedule appropriately. So they ended up with way less sleep than they're used to. And you can put up with less sleep for 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row, and then what happens? You crash. You get burnt out. You crash. You completely crash. After the 5th or 6th day, you end up sleeping all day or sleeping all night and not showing. And that takes away from you your motivation. Like you were feeling good about it, and now you ruin this whole day. You did not do what you were supposed to do during this day, so you feel less motivated. And of course, that tiredness, that fatigue, kind of carries on for a couple of more days. It takes you a week to get back in shape, and by then we're coming towards the last 10 nights. So you're back in for the last 10 nights. This happens every single year. So what I'm asking you to do actually is take a look, especially if you're and this is mostly for our younger brothers and sisters who are either young professionals, or you're still in school, or you're still in university. Go back, take a look. What does your schedule look like? How are you going to fit in the fact that you are going to get up an hour and a half earlier than you used to, and you're probably going to be a little bit more tired because you're going to sleep later because of... Now, the first couple of days is going to be great because Isha is going to be 7:45. We'll be done. We'll be done by 9:30. Amazing. But then a week later, it's going to flip, and then Isha is going to be 8 something, and or close to 9 basically, and we're going to be finishing 10:30. So if you're used to sleeping at a certain time, then you're not going to... that sleep is being delayed. So you get your sleep is getting delayed in terms of when you start it. You're waking up a bit earlier. You can't survive. Most of us can't survive on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Some people, it's a very, very small percentage of human beings who can do that. And the Prophet ﷺ is amongst them, obviously, and he was able. And I think one of the reasons, and maybe we can talk about this, maybe it's not a good time, consumption is a part of it, but chronically, not acute. So you can't, just because you don't eat as much during Ramadan, doesn't mean that your need for sleep is going to decrease immediately. But if for a long period of time you decrease your amount of food, and then you need less sleep. The more you eat, the more sleep you need. This is just how the body works. It's the metabolism of it. So I need you to take a look at your schedule and see how are you going to fit in Fajr and Taraweeh and Isha and all these behavior with keeping or making sure that you're getting enough sleep. And sleep at night is not equal to sleep during the day. An hour at night is worth 2 to 3 a day, during the day easily, right? So how are you going to do that? If you don't do that, I guarantee, if betting was halal, I would put money on you that you will stop showing up after the 7th night. You won't show up. You'll just not show up one night. You come, oh, I slept for 20 hours. Like, yeah, of course you did. Of course, you can't survive with 4 hours a night. It's impossible. No one can. So look at your schedule and ask, what do I need to remove? So Dr. Khokar already brought up a couple of things. So he pointed out your screen time. When I say screen time here, it's a very, very broad term. Under it comes your social media app uses. With it comes gaming and video game. With it comes watching shows. And with that comes watching, obviously, haram, which is a whole different problem. But the screen time is one of the bigger effects of, one of the bigger bad habits that exist that we all have. That we need to get rid of. But think of what else is it for you that you end up spending a chunk of time in that you would prefer that you didn't, right? If you need an hour and a half to unwind when you go home at the end of the night, that's going to be a problem. Like because if you leave here at 10:30 and you need like an hour to watch this show and to play this game and to check on these messages and to chat, then you're not going to sleep until 12. You're not coming for Fajr. And if you don't come for Fajr, then really you've lost like the half of Ramadan, if not more. So look at your schedule and start figuring out what is it that you need to change. I tell people, move things around. Say, okay, this is out. This is out. I can't do this. I won't do this for 30 days straight. Like it's not going to be a part of my day. There's no space for it right now. And you're bringing. It may sound that it's you may struggle with doing this up front, but there's absolutely once you sit and stare at your schedule long enough and you struggle with it. At the end, the pieces that are taking up space for no reason, you'll finally say, you know what? If I just remove this, everything would work perfectly if I just stopped doing this. And there's a lot of bad habits that we can point out here. So I think when it comes to sleep hygiene and your rest time, you have to prioritize making sure you get that. If you're someone who can take a nap during the day, then great. Then that allows you a little bit of leeway in terms of the night. If you can't, then you have to start looking at your schedule. You finish Tarawih, you have to, the sweaters that we have, they're all, what do they say on them? All the same thing, Isha and Fajr. Like I have to stand here and say, go home, Habibi, go home. Like if you don't go home now, I'm doing the math for you in my mind. Like how are you getting up for Fajr? It's impossible. You can't do it. Like you're human. Aren't you human? And I can't do it. Like if you're human, you need to leave now and go to sleep immediately so that you have enough time. And then if you can steal half an hour at work or steal half an hour in school between lectures or you come home at 3 early and you sleep a bit, then maybe you can survive. Otherwise, just as I'm looking at you, if I could bet money, you will stop coming after the 9th day. It's going to happen because your body doesn't allow for that. So look at your schedule. This is an exercise that I am pushing at you. Take a look, go down day by day and see what is it that where's the big chunks of time. Today's Sunday. Put your hand up if you have an iPhone. All right. Put your hand down. All right. Put your hand down. Okay. I'm not going to nafdahkum. No, I'm not going to do it that way. All right. No, I'm not going to do this. That's not fair. That's not fair. But you get on Sunday a report. Like the iPhone is very generous, and it gives you a report and tells you how much you're using this phone a day, right? Yeah. I'll leave it with that. Go look at if you're sitting here and you have the willingness to do it, pull out your phone and just start deleting some of these apps. You can download them later. Like in 40 days, you can download them again. Just delete them now. Get rid of the orange and the blue and the pink. Just get rid of them. Get rid of them. You don't need them. What exactly are you taking from these that are helpful? Leave the stuff that you may be learning from if you have. But if the learning is 10% and the waste of time is 90, you know what? For Ramadan, how about you just get rid of it? Watch the news for 30 minutes every day so that you stay up to date. But get rid of these things so that you have more time to do what you want to do. And you're more focused, because you can't get rid of bad habits if the schedule is not. Is that?
Yeah, no. And actually, I'll piggyback off of that. The sleep debt must be paid, and so you cannot go into sleep debt and then think that things are going to go back to normal. So, mashallah, the Sheikh had a much more sophisticated way of describing it. The way I've generally described it is I call it the Ramadan donut effect. It's sweet in the middle, sweet at the end, but it's a hole in the middle, right? Like there's a hole. And what we need to do is go from like a regular donut to a Boston cream donut. Like we need it to be filled with goodness all the way through. And so that's where the sleep is very important. And the sleep hygiene is very important. But sleep hygiene even becomes that much more important for vulnerable populations. So this is real, and I hope that you will take this not just for yourself, but take it to others that you may know. Bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, depression, all of these things, all of these severe mental illnesses, one of the things that significantly exacerbates the course of those conditions is the lack of sleep hygiene or the lack of sleep. Somebody, you can already, if somebody's about to have a manic episode in their bipolar disorder, you can already start to see it with their changes in sleep habits. You can see it in schizophrenia, you can see it in depression. So if you are one of those people, or if you have family members that are at risk for those things, or you know that somebody, then for you it becomes that much more important for you to be maintaining that sleep hygiene that, as the Sheikh talked about, maintaining that the minimum number of hours. And then those of you that are in school, what does sleep do? You need it for memory consolidation, for example. Whatever you try to memorize during the day, those of you memorizing the Quran, trying to become hafaz, if you're losing sleep at night, that's going, instead of permanent storage, it's going into the recycle bin. And I guess maybe you don't know recycle bin. I'm aging myself, but that used to be a thing on Windows computers back in the day. But really, it's not being consolidated. Your memory is not being consolidated. So as those T-shirts say, Fajr is better than Taraweeh. Take that to heart. Get there for Fajr. Maybe you're getting up for Suhoor anyways. And that's the other thing. One thing that happens, if you stay up late, guess what else you're going to miss out on? You end up skipping out on Suhoor. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as again we talk about, our ultimate truth, right? Our grounding truth is his words. He says, what does he tell us to do? Tasahhuru. Have Suhoor. فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ بَرَكَةٍ. That there is goodness in the Suhoor. And so use that time, get up maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes before. Doing qiyam by yourself is much better than 20 rak'ahs in Taraweeh. Even if you get 2 or 4 rak'ahs in. So pray your Fajr. And especially if you're in one of those vulnerable populations, I think it would have been justified for you to combine your Fajr, your Maghrib and Isha, get enough hours of sleep and then get up for Suhoor and get up for qiyam before. You would be fully justified in doing that because you are taking precautions. You are safeguarding your sleep for your ultimate mental health. And for the young people, when is the onset of any of these major psychiatric conditions? It's in this 16 to 25 range. And sleep during this time is very important, and that's why the doctors will tell you this age range needs this many hours of sleep, and this age range needs this many hours of sleep. In fact, a lot of people that end up being, going to the doctor to talk about their ADHD or talking about their inability to focus, inability to pay attention, if they just focused on their sleep hygiene and got their sleep right, but we think we can game all night and then be attentive at work and be attentive at school in the morning. That's not going to happen. Something's got to give, and sleep is unfortunately the thing that will have the most significant impact, but also long-lasting ramifications. So the Sheikh hit the nail on the head. That's probably the most important thing that contributes to both loss of productivity in Ramadan, but also the rest of the year. So find that time to be okay with your sleep at the very least.
The reason I bring this up is that this is something that I take care of very, very meticulously throughout Ramadan. Even during the nights of tahajjud, I finish Taraweeh and I bolt home. I wolf down whatever is left and I sleep, even if it's just an hour. I make sure that I fall asleep for that hour. It makes a huge difference in your general well-being. Even if you're doing i'tikaf, even if you're trying to pray all night long, getting a little bit of sleep. There are narrations about the Prophet ﷺ where Aisha and Salama and other wives would point out that the Prophet ﷺ never prayed a full night, as in from Isha to Fajr, like the full timing. قال وما ذهب رسول الله بلا دون نوم قط. He never allowed a full night to go without sleeping some time there, alayhi salatu wasalam, ever. And I think sometimes when we hear some of these narrations about his grit and his ability to pray all night, alayhi salam, we misunderstand this and think that he's doing something that would not be. No, he was a healthy human being, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he actually did not like summer after Isha. Like he would tell people, don't go out and do stuff after Isha, because that's the perfect time for you to go and get some sleep, and then you get up and you pray later on in the
night. And people before electricity, by the way, just so you know, there's something called biphasic sleep patterns. Before electricity, people, and I say this now, I know this because I lived in Syria for 2 years. There was no electricity. For the last, it was very, very, very rare. It would come a couple of hours a day. And I was the least motivated person to go get one of those generators. And my wife was like, get it, I got inshallah next week. I liked it. I loved it. I loved the fact that I fell asleep walking home from Isha. Like there was everything, it was pitch dark and you barely made it home and you just slept right away. Sleeping early, especially when in your late in your teens and in your 20s, it's actually a very, very healthy thing. And I know right now you're 20 or 25, and you're like, you feel like you can go without sleep for days and days and weeks. It's not healthy for you. It's not good for you at all. It's not good for you. You will pay for this later in your 30s. Believe me, you'll pay for it. It'll be obvious on your hair and your face and the way you live. No, don't do this. Ramadan offers you this opportunity. It tells you, okay, look, you do what you want throughout the year, but Ramadan forces you. You have to sleep early. You have to finish Tarawih and go sleep if you're going to be able to wake up for Fajr, listen to adults, do your adhkar, and then actually make your way to work afterwards and not faint in the midst of all of it. So you have to kind of change your lifestyle. Why people don't do it is because there's a fear, and this is my opinion, and I'll ask Dr. Khokar to maybe talk about this a little bit more. The reason I feel people don't do it, like I remember I did this last year, and I asked people here, can you stop gaming throughout Ramadan? Just Ramadan for 30 days. Just turn off the console. Just don't turn it on throughout Ramadan. And a lot of people couldn't do it. Like they say, we can't do it. And I asked, what is the reason here? Like, why can't you do this? Like, I can't. Like, I don't understand it. Like, I didn't understand it. I don't find it difficult to delete all of the social media apps and turn off the TV. Like, it's not that. I don't find it to be that difficult. Then one of the reasons I found, and this may be very simplistic, but one of the reasons I found people struggle with is that they fear that they're going to lose all their joy. And you're saying that they're going to lose out on joy. There's this funny meme that comes out, or it's just a quote. I find it hilarious because it works for me. It's like, you should stop drinking, not drinking, not putting sugar in your tea. Only going to cost you 85% of your happiness. That's all. You're going to be just going to. It's a joke, right? But I understand. But there's some truth in these phrases where you don't want to give this up, because if I give up my gaming, then what's left in the day? This is a garbage day. Like I have nothing to look forward to. There's nothing to enjoy. And that saddens me even more. That this is where you are in your life. You've allowed yourself to come to a point where you don't find any degree of satisfaction or fulfillment aside from this. That means you're enslaved to this. You're not abdullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Forgive me. That means we are not ibad lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are ibad for whatever it is that we cannot give up. Ramadan comes and kind of shakes the foundation a little bit. It challenges you a little bit. It challenges you. Like if you want the ajr of this month, if you actually want to perform something meaningful in this month and walk away with them, you're going to have to give up some of the things that you know you should have given up a long time. And the same thing goes for social media. When I ask people, can you actually delete Facebook and Instagram and whatever else, Twitter and TikTok, and I don't know what else does today. You can just delete all these apps and just not download them throughout Ramadan, just for Ramadan, and then bring them back in Ramadan. You'll have your profile still be there. And they struggle with it. They can't do it. They go, why can't you do it? It's because if you feel that that's where you get your joy from, then that's actually a problem. That should be a bigger red flag for you than anything. Like that should right now, I'm sounding the alarm for you. If you feel that way about these things, if you feel that way about certain behaviors, certain habits, where you can't give them up, you don't want to give them up, under no circumstances are you willing to give them up, then that should be you should sound the alarm. Because that means you are you have lost the ability to enjoy other things. And I can tell you something. I'll tell you this, that praying Fajr in Jama'ah and attending a dars and praying Taraweeh and socializing with people during that period is very joyful. Like, there's a lot of joy in that. That is something worthy of looking forward to. If you don't feel that way about it, then I'm asking you to maybe reconsider the way you're living your life. Reconsider, because it's really worth feeling that. Like, I want that feeling for you. I want you to be able to feel that way about salah, about gathering for a prayer, about hearing the Quran, about attending the masjid. I want you to feel that, because not feeling that is just it's a bit of a ripoff, really. Right? I'm telling you, the console does not offer you the amount of happiness that this can offer you. Like you're actually taking on something that is less valuable. It's just because maybe there's some degree of addiction. Would that be in it that it's hard to give up? So look at that schedule of yours and figure out what is it that you need to give up. And the one thing that you're like, I don't want to give that up, give that one up. That one thing that you're saying, I don't want to give, that's the thing. That's it. People don't understand that that's how life is. It's like, as long as Allah doesn't ask me about this one thing, that's it. He's going to, let me stop you right there. That's exactly what he's going to ask you about. No, I've done a lot. I know. I don't care. That one thing that you're fearing that he won't ask you about, that's it. Don't, period. End the sentence. That is what he's going to ask you about. I guarantee it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it, there's a lot of cruise control in life. Like there's a lot of smooth sailing. Like life has all these periods where it's just easy. You can just leave, put your feet back. The road is straight and it's empty. It's moments in life where there are peaks and there are kind of low points, and that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at you the most. What are you doing with these things? How are you treating these opportunities or these challenges in your life? Are you taking Ramadan is just there to serve you. To help. Without Ramadan, there'd be I find as Muslims almost impossible. How do you change bad? I don't know. Like I feel Ramadan is is that time of the year that offers you the opportunity to turn it around, make a change. Like you take put your hand on the steering wheel and just move this into the right direction again, and get rid of the dead weight. Just get rid of the dead weight that's been holding you back. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offers you this annual opportunity. It's such a waste that we don't take it, and then we allow ourselves somehow to keep the bad habits within Ramadan. And then you don't end up enjoying it as much, and you don't end up spending as much time doing what you would want to do. And then you don't try. Give yourself one good Ramadan. I guarantee that you will do it every year. Like if you run one nice Ramadan where you get rid of all this stuff and you're just by the book. You are up for every suhoor. Even if you're a sister and you have like those days, you can still wake up and help people with their suhoor and do your dhikr and do your awrad and read the Quran and do your dua. Even if you're offered a few days off fasting and praying, it doesn't take away from the fact that you can still do a lot of the actions that get ajr. But do one nice Ramadan where you're fully committed the full month. It'll do something for you. You'll know that this Ramadan changed things for you. Like you may still we'll all still make mistakes, we'll have shortcomings, but you'll always remember that month, that year, things changed for me. I never went back to how it was before. It was only kind of like my baseline. You lift it, you raise the baseline for yourself. And that's what Ramadan can offer you. And I think it's absolutely imperative for all of us to feel that way about it, and then to think that way about it, so that we plan accordingly. And especially if you're young and you have bad habits, and we all do. And I guess maybe the aspect of addiction, what do you think about it?
No, I think there's definitely something to it. Like they're called gaming disorders, for example, and so that is real. But I think an important piece of all of this, and I think that's the undercurrent that I wanted to touch upon, is far too often we make Ramadan about the physical and forget about the spiritual, right? But every hadith that we've talked about, and even the Sheikh Janabi talking about it yesterday, Rasulullah keeps bringing us back. It's like, get back to the spiritual. Stop thinking about the physical. Stop thinking about that. Get back to the spiritual. And that's where, even if going back to the sleep thing, but this applies to everything else as well. What kind of capacity for spiritual connection and uplifting and rejuvenation would you even have if you're sleep deprived? In fact, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam again tells us that if you have nu'as and if you are falling asleep, then go get some sleep, then pray. Because he like hits you with it. He says, a person might go out wanting to seek istighfar, wanting to seek forgiveness, but and he ends up cursing himself because he's sleepy and he doesn't know what he's saying. That's what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying. He even, one of the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen has a rope hanging to be able to stand up in the Qiyam. He tells them to take it down. Forget about pushing yourself physically, push yourself spiritually. Push yourself. Those are not the same. Those don't have to be the same. And that's where the pushing yourself spiritually comes down to giving up what you prefer most, what you love most. Right? Like even if you think about, and this is a bad example, I use it anyways, because as the Shaykh said, you're not Abdullah. But like the mushrikeen of Makkah were like, we're willing to give up everything except for this one thing, right? Like that's what they would say. So really think about what this one thing has become for you, and that's the thing to give up. That's pushing yourself spiritually. And the other thing, especially when social media, and as the Sheikh mentioned, like why are you not giving it up? We have inhaled and taken on consumerism to the point that we're driven by FOMO. We're driven by fear of missing out. It could be that restaurant, it could be that game, it could be that person, what they wore on social media or what they were talking about, and that's what's driving us. It's just that I don't want to miss out on that one reel that was going to change my entire life. And most of it is garbage anyways, like even the parts that they're talking, I'm sorry to say this, even the ones that are telling you about your deen. You can forget about the pop psychology. Like if somebody sends me something and is like, is this correct? I'm like, it's not correct. You can assume that it's not correct. They're just algorithm baiting you. They're just creating content that's going to get them the most views, not what's going to help you the most. And so even that wisdom, pearl of wisdom that you thought you might get from your Instagram reel, it's actually not that much of a wisdom. And subhanAllah, it's actually, this is what, and I think it's really important. We are in a place now where our deen has more to do with an algorithm than with the deen itself. Because the last time you saw a video and it was talking about something you did not want to hear, what did you do? You swiped up. It was talking about the hard thing. It was talking about giving something up. It was talking about following a limit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set. And then, what was the other one? The one that was like the nice heart softening thing, or that was like easy peasy, like this is the one I like, and you watched it. And then you watched the next one because that was the same thing. And now we're literally at a buffet, but they know what you like and what you don't like, and they're only giving you what you like. And so you're maybe capturing 10% of your religion, and you think, oh, my curated timeline is all dini. I just listened to mashayikh and all. You're only getting what you like from the deen and not getting any of what you don't like. And not that we're saying that there are things that we don't like about our deen, but anything that even felt remotely difficult. Anything that was actually asking you to do something that was hard for your nafs. These algorithms know your nafs better than you do. These algorithms are for your nafs. They are for your nafs to be the wild horse that it has always wanted to be. And they call it attention capitalism. That's literally what they call it. They are buying your attention by giving you what you want, so that they can give you ads as well. Like, you're going to get more like hijab ads from Shein than you'll get from any Muslim place, right? Like, just think about what they give you. For the brothers, like, you get thobes and you get whatever from some company in China that's making them and selling them. Right? Like, that's literally what we've become. We just are consumers of ads with some hadith and ayat sprinkled in between. But that's literally all we're getting.
I think we all agree that change is hard. We don't like it. It's not something that you look forward to. Funny enough, every single person sitting in this room, myself included obviously, would like to change things, right? Like this is like one of the biggest conundrums of existence, of life, is that if I sat down with you and asked, like, what is wrong with your life? You say, I'm doing this, I don't want to do this, I would like to do that. All right, so you need to change a few things. Okay, all right, so here's a month that's designed to do that. So no, I'm gonna find a cheat code. I'm gonna find a way around it. And you can do it. I know you can. You don't have to prove that to me or to anyone else, by the way. You are capable of completely cheating your way through Ramadan and not changing a thing. We've learned to do that. Anyone here come from the Middle East? What happens after Taraweeh in the Middle East on TV, right? Every great musalsal is going to be there in Ramadan. They don't make any shows outside of Ramadan. Like, no, you don't understand it. It's not like they make a couple. No. All of the shows, all of them. They're not listening to me. No, all of them, all of the shows. Like here in Canada, in America, like they'll put out movies every couple of months, right? No, in the Middle East they don't. It's 11 months of fasting, and then 12. That 1 month, every single piece of theater that they can come up with, they will stack in Ramadan. I know I have family members who will sit down and all they're doing is just figuring out their schedule, not for what I'm talking about, but what musalsal they're going to watch at what time to make sure that they don't miss things. And then like, well, that one I'll have to watch on YouTube after Ramadan because I can't fit it in. There's not enough time throughout the day and the night to do it. This is how it's been. We've figured out the cheat code. You just sleep all day and then you make the biggest iftar that has ever been seen in the history of iftars, and you eat until you can't move anymore. And then you eat more, and you keep on eating until Fajr, and you watch every musalsal. We figured out the cheat code. Good. Mabruk. Mabruk. Give yourself a round of applause. Amazing. However, if you actually feel that change is needed, deep down inside you feel like, no, I can be better. I want to be better. Then here's what Ramadan is. Here's the opportunity. Here's a month that is designed to help you change, to help you make that change so that you can be better, so you can function better. It just hurts me when I see people waste it. Like, this is the month. If you were to live, inshallah, 15 Ramadans, inshallah, let's say, inshallah, you have within your life another 15 Ramadans. I mean, inshallah, many more, but let's say 15. And every Ramadan, you just got rid of one bad habit. How many bad habits do you have? like you have more than 15? I don't see that possible. Like, usually people have 2 or 3. So if you just focus a couple of Ramadans, you've rid yourself of most of the bad habits. Then your baseline is much higher now. You see, Ramadan, a lot takes away from us during the day. Distractions, right? By removing, I've always found this fascinating, because I always thought that when I was a kid, I was very critical. I used to ask a lot of questions about how things were done, and of course, I got educated and taught. But I was like, when a kid, if the point is distractions, why not just the Prophet ﷺ come out and say, during the day of Ramadan, get rid of distractions and let us eat. Let us eat and drink water. When you're grade 7 and you're playing in recess, you want to drink some water at the end of it. At the end of the day, you are thirsty beyond your ability to think. You're so hungry. As a young person, you get hungrier than people who are a bit older. Your hunger is real. It's really, really real. And you're like, well, just tell me to get rid of distractions. No. Ramadan goes to a different level of extreme, where I'm going to remove your distractions. I'm going to remove every distraction, including your basic needs, including water and food. So for us to play around that. I said this yesterday, and I'll say this. Look, we have the red line, right? Here's the red line. No, this is not appropriate. Sheikh Jabran is sitting right here. So here's the red line, right? And here's the haram, and right here is the halal. And I'm sitting in the halal. Ramadan comes with a big boot, and it kicks me, and it goes, go over there. Go over there. Why are you doing here right beside the red line? Why are you doing here? Go sit over there. What's halal now is not halal anymore. What's halal right now, with food and drink, and it's not halal. Go sit over there, farther away. So for you to say, okay, I'm not allowed to sit over here, you're going to sit over there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is removing, say, don't sit over here anymore, because this is where halal food and halal drink and halal. So you're going to go sit in the haram. It makes no sense. There's no logic to it. It makes absolutely no sense. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove the basic halal needs with the intention of removing distractions for you, sending you farther away from that very dangerous red line. Right? You stay away from it, and then somehow we find a way to actually go sit within that area. And it's unfortunate. If you want to see change in your life, if you really do, then this is the time. There is no better time. It's next Saturday. It's starting this Friday. If you want to make a change in your personal life, and you want things to be better for yourself, and you want your future to be different, and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be different, and your spirituality to be different, and your manner to be different, and your demeanor, and all of these things to change, then tell me, when were you planning to do it? No, I really want to, and I ask this question all the time. Tell me. I don't mind. Don't do it, ya akhi. Forget about this Friday. Give me a timeline. Tell me when you have the intention to do it. I dare, but no one has an answer. I've had these discussions. No one offers an answer. The best answer is once I'm done school, or I'm done university, or I'm married or something. Or I have a child, and I look at the poor person like, you have no idea what you're saying, do you? You have no idea at all. You have no clue. What you're just speaking. It's nonsense coming out of your mouth. You have no idea what you're talking about. You think that's the right time to do the change that you want. You think when you're going to get busier, or you're going to be under more pressure. La ya ammi. The only time that you have is now. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is granting us this gift. We're coming towards it. This is how Ramadan is. It's a guest, as Dr. Jabran said at the beginning. It's coming to us. It's offering us this opportunity. And the opportunity is for you. No one gets to tell you, no one gets to tell you not to eat and not to drink and not to. This is only Allah can tell you this. If I commanded you to do this, you would spit in my face. It's not my place to tell you what to. This is Allah. So He's telling you to do this stuff, and you're saying, all right. But there's a bigger purpose for it, right? Make sure that larger purpose is visible to you, so you can actually utilize this 30-day boot camp and walk away at the end of it with something that's meaningful. Everyone in this room, at some point in Ramadan, in a previous Ramadan, can remember a really beautiful night. They may not remember the details of it. Like they may not remember exactly what the verse that the Shaykh was reciting in Taraweeh, or they just remember this really beautiful wave of, for the lack of mercy, just hitting them, just wave of just beauty, where they just enjoyed that night, and they wished that night would never end. And in that sajda, they found a certain degree of fulfillment and happiness that they'd never experienced before. This is a small taste of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's giving you a sample. It's like the people standing in Costco offering you the little, it's just a sample of what you could get if you just made some adjustments within the holy month. I'll ask Dr. Jubran, inshallah, to conclude the session with a few remarks. If there are questions, inshallah, after, are you okay after Isha? Inshallah, after Isha, we'll open the floor, inshallah, for some questions.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head with so many things. So, now going back to being a scientist, right? Like, what is the ultimate goal for any scientific experiment is for a scientific experiment to be a single variable experiment, where everything else stays the same, and there's one change that's happening so that you can pin it down to that change. And that is what Ramadan gives you, right? It's, you are the variable. The shayateen, locked up. Those whispers, gone. Everybody around you, in their best behavior. All your friends who are used to pull you towards doing things that you didn't want to do, they're on their best behavior. The only variable remains is you. So if you really want to get a sense of where you stand with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your barometer, your iman, your taqwa, which, the ayah goes back to, right? Like, the fasting has been ordained upon you, just as it was ordained upon the people before you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you would increase in taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the opportunity. He's like, here. I might age myself again, but I used to watch Dragon Ball Z as a kid, as a cartoon. And they had these little glasses that had power meters, right? And you would see the person and sometimes they'd blow up because the other person's power is so high, right? Yeah, we don't have that for taqwa. Even though we love to pretend, we look at somebody's like, oh, that guy's low, that guy's low. We never look at ourselves. We never look at ourselves. Ramadan gives you those glasses for your own taqwa. Literally gives you that. You are the variable. This is where you're starting, ending. Is that where you're going to be, or are you going to be down here? And then next year, when that comes back again, are you going to scrape any of those tracks from the road? Or is it just the snow just building up? Those tracks are just getting thicker and thicker. And the thicker they get, the harder they are to remove. That's the ran on our hearts. The thicker those tracks get, the more your car drives on that snow, the harder it will be. The metal-lined scraper isn't going to do anything. That shovel, the chisel isn't going to do anything. So start now. If not now, then when? If not now, then when? And really, and the example the Shaykh said about pushing us into one, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even about al-halalu bayyin wal-haramu bayyin, that halal is clear and haram is clear, and what's between them is that gray area. But the example Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam uses is that if you had a flock of sheep, and they're grazing, and a flock of sheep is like a amorphous thing. It doesn't stay together. And some sheep might cross into the pasture of the king. But he could have said your neighbor's pasture. He says the pasture of the king. The king wouldn't notice anything missing. He has so many pastures that he would miss nothing. It wasn't about the king. It was about you. It was about you and your sheep. It was about your circle of influence. It's about you and your family. Wake them up. Rasulullah, even in the last night, 10 nights, he would tie his belt and he would wake up his family. What's your locus of control? It's you and your family. Get that right. Let's not worry about somebody else's taqwa. Get your own taqwa right. Jazakumullah khairan.
Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah, we'll go for Salat al-Isha and then